Jeremy Scahill, Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. Embark on a deep dive into the shadowy world of Blackwater, a private military corporation whose mercenary army expanded across the globe, all while operating outside the constraints of the law. In this summary of Jeremy Scahill's groundbreaking book, Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army, uncover the aggressive mark these mercenaries left behind in Iraq. Follow a trail of brazen actions protected by immunity from prosecution, and see how the privatization of military functions exploded under the Bush administration. Learn about the entangled political and business interests behind this world-spanning force, and the controversial private military industry.
Blackwater's unprecedented contract killings. Blackwater, a private army owned by Eric Prince, was responsible for the death of 17 civilians and the injury of over 20 more in Iraq's Nisour Square in 2007. Despite complaints from officials about their violent acts, Blackwater was protected by the State Department, which gave them $1 billion in no-bid contracts. The guards, who charge up to $2,000 per day, were granted immunity from prosecution under leaders like U.S. Ambassador Paul L. Bremer. Blackwater was even defended by President George Bush and Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, who claimed that independent contractors were unaccountable for their actions. The Nisour Square shootings were found to be unjustified, provoking outrage from military leaders. Relatives of the victims eventually sued Blackwater for war crimes and killings outside the law. Blackwater and the Privatization of Military. The book explores the growth of Blackwater, the largest private security and military contractor, which is part of the trend of privatizing the military. The concept of privatization was advanced by former Secretary of Defense Cheney under the Bush administration and was later implemented on a massive scale during the invasion of Iraq in March 2003. By mid-2007, there were 180,000 private employees working for 630 contractors in Iraq, and 1 out of every 3 people involved in the coalition were contractors. The government paid contractors the equivalent of all the taxes paid by every taxpayer who makes less than $100,000 annually. Blackwater became synonymous with the private police and security business. The book revealed that not a single Blackwater contractor had ever been charged with a crime under any legal system, U.S. civilian law, military law, or Iraqi law. The use of contractors allowed the U.S. military to dodge unpopular issues that might have arisen, and many armed contractors were used as mercenaries. The Rise of Blackwater. Former Navy SEAL Eric Prince founded Blackwater with family money, building a private military training facility that soon became the largest private arsenal in the U.S. Blackwater's reputation grew after the September 11 attacks as they expanded into providing private security for the U.S. military. However, the company's actions in Iraq, including shooting at civilians and running people off the road, led to controversy and criticism. Blackwater's success was due in part to its connections with the extreme religious and political right wing, as the family behind the company was anti-abortion and anti-gay. The rise of private armies like Blackwater in Iraq was likened to the Alaskan gold rush and the OK Corral, as the post-war business boom was all about security. Blackwater's rise to power. The book recounts the rise of Blackwater, a private security firm, and its entanglement with the U.S. government in the Iraq War. The firm gained a foothold in the post-9/11 world and presented itself as a silent partner in the American struggle to eradicate terrorism. As Blackwater expanded, it became involved in more controversies, including an ambush in Fallujah and an attack by Muqtada al-Sadr's Mahdi army in Najaf. Despite mounting criticism, Blackwater grew at an alarming rate, negotiating its role in shaping Defense Department standards for private contractors and winning a $750 million contract from the Worldwide Personal Protective Service. The U.S. government's reliance on Blackwater and other private security firms drained the Iraq reconstruction budget and led to numerous abuses, including those at Abu Ghraib prison. Blackwater's rise to power. Blackwater, a private security company, gained a lucrative contract to train paramilitaries in the Bush Circle who would protect oil facilities in the Baku area. This disrupted Moscow's local influence and gave the West better access to oil and gas facilities. To stabilize the area, Blackwater helped to overthrow a regime in Georgia and installed a new one that was pro-American. They were hired to protect the oil facilities and maintain surveillance facilities on Iran's border, including the BTC pipeline that circumvented Russia. As the need for more mercenaries developed, Blackwater began recruiting from developing countries. However, it exploited them by not paying as agreed and confiscating their return tickets. Blackwater also faced a lawsuit filed by families of the 4 men killed in Fallujah. The company stymied the lawsuit and failed to cooperate voluntarily with congressional investigators. Blackwater hired top Bush appointees, including Cofer J. Black, a former CIA officer and ambassador, and Joseph E. Schmitz, the Pentagon's Inspector General, to expand its political power. The rise of Blackwater and the privatization of security. In the wake of Hurricane Katrina, Blackwater, a private military company, was hired to supply security services in New Orleans despite the local police's objection. Blackwater received a no-bid contract from the Department of Homeland Security and went on to accumulate over $70 million in revenue for its hurricane-related work. This marked the beginning of the privatization of security both domestically and internationally. By 2006, Blackwater claimed it could provide a private brigade-size force anywhere in the world faster and cheaper than NATO or UN forces. The Bush administration expanded this privatization, and by the time Rumsfeld left office, active-duty military stood at a 1-to-1 ratio with private mercenaries in Iraq. The security industry was estimated to be a $100 billion a year business. Today, private contractors continue to play a crucial role in U.S. military operations, and politicians such as Obama and Clinton advocate for their use in protecting American diplomats in Iraq.
The story of Blackwater is a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the dangers of unconstrained military privatization. The company's success led to more than $1 billion in no-bid contracts from the State Department, but with no accountability for their deadly actions. As the demand for mercenaries grew, Blackwater burgeoned into an internationally present force, allowed to operate outside the constraints of any legal system. Jeremy Scahill's remarkable expose unravels the interplay of politics, business, and religion, showing how this private army achieved its power and popularity, and highlighting the potential perils of a world where war becomes good business.